Welcome to the Victorian Parents Council VPC Parent Podcast Series. VPC is a registered charity organisation dedicated to everyone who supports parents in educating their children. I'm Jerry Penny, your host today. Okay, good evening everyone. Welcome to the Victorian Parents Council. This is Jerry Penny, and tonight we've got our special guest, Pamela Holko. Welcome, Pam.
Good evening, Jerry. Thank you.
Thanks for coming along. Now, the VPC, for those of you who don't know, is a registered charity organisation, and they are all about providing resources for parents and teachers as well, for independent and private schools and state schools and things like that. But the one thing that they have never really talked about is grandparents. And we thought that it was a great opportunity tonight, with Grandparents' Day coming up in about 10 days' time, that we thought we'd interview you, because you have actually authored a book a while ago now called, now I'm just going to hold it up here, Wednesday at GAMS, get that right. Providing daycare for grandchildren, what really works. So welcome again, Pamela. And the first thing we'd love to ask you about is, what inspired you to write this book?
Well, I've had such fun with my grandchildren. I'm blessed, I've got 4 grandchildren, and I started providing care for them from the time they're about 2 until they were ready to go to school. And I had such fun doing all sorts of interesting activities and going on adventures and just generally having a good time together as we were learning together, and they were growing and learning all sorts of things. And I had quite a few people say to me, "Oh, how do you think up? What do you know? How do you know what to do with them?" And I said, "Oh, well, I've got a background in primary education, so that certainly helps a lot. But I guess I've just got a creative mind in some way, and we'd come up with fun things to do together." And so I thought, well, I might write this down. There might be other people who'd like to share these ideas and act as a resource. So I decided to do that.
Fabulous. Now, I completely skipped the bit about you, so do tell us a bit about yourself. I know that you've got a big background in education, so tell us a bit about your working history.
Well, I'm a teacher, a primary school teacher, and I always loved teaching the youngest kids in the school. I think it's such an exciting time. There's so much development that happens in those really early years, and you see kids learn to read and talk and ask questions and just develop so much. And of course, my whole career was spent in education. So I worked from being a classroom teacher up to coordinator and deputy head of a junior school and director of learning, and I worked with gifted kids, and I've done all sorts of things in education. So all that is quite a rich background to draw on, and it's been used with my grandchildren, and ideas have been passed on to other grandparents.
Fabulous. And I believe you retired just in time to become a grandparent.
I did, yes. I decided
you planned it that way, or?
I did plan it that way. I was thinking about retiring, and I decided that what better time to retire than this big change in my life, and it's worked out very well.
Excellent. And now you've got how many? 4 grandkids? I've
got 4 grandkids. The eldest teenager, nearly teenagers, and the youngest is now 8. Right. So ever since the eldest one was 2, I have had grandchildren coming to me for at least 1 day a week until they started school. And now, of course, they're all at school. And I still love having them come and visit. And they always like to come and stay for a couple of nights over the school holidays so that we can have some adventures together.
Oh, fabulous. That sounds like every parent's dream, to have grandparents that take the kids away for a couple of nights. And so what are some of the amazing things that you've done with the grandkids? I'd love to hear some of the ideas that you mentioned in your book.
Well, really, things don't have to be too complicated, because the most important thing that you can give to your grandchildren, if you are looking after them, is time. These days, parents are so busy.
Yeah.
And mostly they're trying to run a home, they're trying to work full time, they've often got elderly parents themselves that they're having to keep an eye on. And they don't have time to just stop. And it sounds a bit trite to say stop and smell the roses, but that's what it is really. You know, they don't have time to stop with a grandchild and wonder at the woolly buds on a grapevine, or to stop long enough to watch a caterpillar nibble a leaf, or shuffle through the leaves when it's autumn.
Yeah.
There are so many things that are they're small things, but to spend the time doing them together is what's important. And of course, talking about what you're doing, because all the time you're building communication skills.
Yeah.
And then you go home and you draw about it, or you stick your autumn leaves onto a piece of paper and the grandparent writes a sentence. This is building literacy.
Yeah.
And then you look at books together, picture books. You might find a very hungry caterpillar and read that book together. And of course, that's where my background in education helps, because that gives me triggers to know where to look for certain information.
Yeah.
But it's not really difficult.
Yeah.
And of course, I always have a camera with me. Well, these days it's my phone. But whatever we do, I take photos, because there is no book that kids like to read more than a book about themselves.
True.
I take lots of photos of the activities the kids are doing, then put them together in a book. And it may be something quite simple, like printed photographs stuck on some card and stapled together to make a little book where I write a simple sentence for each page. And as the children get older, I would write something more complicated. Or I'm a great fan of these companies that you can print digitally online, and you can make really a very nice book. And each year, when I was looking after the children before they started school, I would make them a book as part of their Christmas present, which had all the activities in it that we had shared during the year.
That's beautiful.
Sorted by months or types of activity or whatever.
Yeah.
So it's something, they've got an ongoing record of what we've done together. And even long after I've gone, I hope they'll still have those books and they'll be able to look back and see what we did together.
Yeah, that's a fabulous keepsake for the kids. And again, it's just something that, you know, parents wish they had time to do themselves, but they never have the time to make these things. So that's wonderful.
Time. It does take time.
Yeah, I bet. What's some of the things you've done with the grandkids to sort of help harness their talents and things like that?
Well, I think you've always got to listen to them, and if they're interested in nature, you go out into the garden, you look at things in the garden, you look at flowers, maybe look at the different colours and how the flowers are constructed differently, different shaped leaves, different coloured leaves. Look at the birds, different types of birds, and then get right into, oh, look, their feet are different. Why does a duck have feet that look like that? And things like that. So you're extending their knowledge. Or maybe it's music. They might be very interested in music. So it's fabulous to dance and prance together, put some music on, have a dress-up box. Let's get dressed up and do some dancing. Lots of ribbons, especially little girls, love flashing around the ribbons when they're dancing.
Yeah.
It might be climbing, might be a daredevil boy who wants to go to the highest climbing frame that there is. So you go to the local park and teach them how to do it safely, and play lots of games on the climbing equipment. or jumping and from one bit to another, so that, you know, you're building their physical coordination. Walking, taking the scooter to the park, going to the beach and looking at the shells, different shaped shells, different coloured shells, walking on the sand, into the water, splashing. All that is education.
Yeah.
It's also fun.
Yeah, yeah, and just amazing memories for the kids to
Yes.
have these kinds of experiences. And I think I said to someone once, I think I said it to my own mum when she was helping my son during the schooling at home time, and you know, she said, "Oh, he's not paying attention," and blah blah blah. And I said, look, don't worry about if he's paying attention. I said, all that matters is that he remembers this time that he got to speak to grandma once a week during homeschooling, you know? And I said, that's it. Just try and make some memories with him, please, you know? Don't worry about that. He's still learning. It doesn't matter that you're not getting all the things done every day. Don't worry about that. But I said, just create memories, just create some fun for him.
And that relationship.
Yeah.
Because grandchildren have a different relationship with their grandparent than they have with their parent.
Yeah, of course.
They'll talk differently.
They behave
and
better.
Talk about things with their grandparent that they won't talk about with their parents. And that's where the responsibility of the grandparent comes in, is that if it's something really important, she just quietly gets the message over to the parent. But sometimes that's not necessary. The child just needs to have an ear and trust that person to know that they can talk about anything.
Yeah.
And answer questions. Children love to ask why. And somehow you have to give an answer that explains what they're questioning, but in a way that they can understand, and in a way that they can make refer it to other things that they understand. So it's all about making sort of networks for them, building their intelligence, their knowledge, especially emotional intelligence.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. So tell me about some of the boundaries that you might set between the role of, like, with parents and grandparents and grandkids.
Well, GAMS house, GAMS rules is the first one. So you may be allowed to jump on the couch at home, but you don't do it at my place.
Yeah.
Okay. And also just basic manners and respect. You know, it's important that grandparents and adults say please and thank you to children, as well as the children saying please and thank you to the adults when they want something or they receive something. Yeah. Things like sitting at the table to eat. You know, they don't, when they're at my place, they don't walk around with food. And we don't eat all day. We have snack time and meal time, and you eat then. And then there's always water. They always have a water bottle that they can access anytime they like. But food is set times and set procedure.
Just like when they're at school. So
yes.
And I'd also love to bring up about, you know, the grandparent, a grandparent that might say, I want to help my children with childcare, but I don't want to be a doormat. How do you have that conversation?
Well, it's terribly important that the adults have a chance to sit and have that conversation, because I see exactly where you're coming from there. It's very easy for a grandparent to be abused in that the time is all taken. But grandparents have a life too. They've raised their children, and a lot of them are very busy. They've got golf, they've got cards, they've got travel. A lot of them volunteer for various organisations. So parents have to respect that a grandparent needs to know when she or he is going to be providing care, because everyone thrives on routine. The children thrive on routine. Parents, if they are busy at work, they need to know if a grandparent is going to provide care, it has to be reliable. If it's going to be Tuesday, it's every Tuesday. Or it's once a month on a Wednesday. But it needs to be a routine so that everybody knows where they're coming from.
Yeah.
And if the grandparent is going to travel, they need to give the parent sufficient warning so that they can organise some alternative care, because it's not the grandparent's child. Yeah. Although I do know there are some grandparents who are actually raising their grandchildren, and that's on a totally different level. But certainly that discussion needs to be had before care is instigated. And there are other things that need to be considered too, like who is going to provide the food, nappies, all that sort of thing. Are they going to come with the child, or are they going to be provided by the grandparent? One of the biggest things which must be discussed is the child going to travel in the grandparent's car? And if so, the grandparent must have a suitable child restraint that fits Australian standards. And the parents have to be confident about their children riding in that car. And if they're not, they should say no. Yeah. And both sides have to respect that.
Yeah.
Then there are other issues like allergies, food intolerances need to be discussed, and grandparents need to be right on top of any issues there. They need to know where the child's doctor is, contact numbers to contact parents at work if necessary. Yeah. All those things have to be talked about. Yeah. And the hours, you know, are the children going to be arriving at 7 o'clock in the morning, or are they staying until dinner time? Do the parents expect the children to be bathed and fed before they're picked up or sent home? All those things need to be discussed. You can't let that just be a big free-for-all that you dip into as you like. It's like setting up the rules.
Did you have support from one of your parents as well when your kids were young?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I did.
Yeah.
I think I had a very good role model in my mother.
Yeah.
Fabulous. She was fabulous. And she had, as a consequence, fabulous relationship with her grandchildren.
Yeah. Yeah.
And, you know, the children grow up. It's never the same once they go to school, because when you're 3, everything your grandma says is true. Everything she does is wonderful, and she never makes any mistakes. As the children grow, they realise that we're all human, and they're not quite as reliant on grandparents as they were when they were tiny, and they're growing. They've got their peers, and that's important. That's their life. Because from the day we have our children, we're training them to be independent. So, yeah.
I know my partner still has so many fond memories about his grandparents, and all of the family stories that come out are about the things that he did with grandparents, and learning how to cook different things, or, you know, smelling something in the kitchen and going, oh, that smells like Granny's casserole, you know, things like that. There's so many fond memories of the grandparents, and that's lovely. Like, I personally grew up with one grandparent overseas and one, you know, almost, you know, interstate, quite many hours away. And so I didn't get to see my grandparents really only on the holidays. And the other grandparent, I've seen her maybe 4 or 5 times in my life. So it's amazing to hear the stories of people that have grown up very close to their grandparents and the experiences that they've had, really. So, and reflecting on that, I was talking to another family one time where, you know, there may have been a slight bit of competition between the two grandmothers, where one seemed to always be giving too many presents compared to another one, or something like that. And I remember saying that, you know, at the end of the day, the kids aren't going to remember the stuff They're going to remember the experiences, the love that they felt, the memories and things like that. That's what they will remember. They will not remember the stuff at the end of the day that they've already thrown out 6 months later. So I think that's one of the really important things to remember, you know, when grandparenting, that it's not just about piling your grandkids with gifts, you know.
No,
it's about
it's not.
that quality time.
Time.
Yeah.
Give them time,
Yeah.
and a time to talk and time to do things together. It's
Yeah.
nothing better than curling up with someone on a sofa to look at a picture book together, or to listen to a story. And especially if it's a story that the grandparent is telling about the child's parents when they were little. Well, parent, because there's only one that they would know.
Yeah.
But and especially if they did something a little bit naughty, that's always good.
Yeah. Got to have one up the sleeve. We just wanted to refer to an article. It was about things children can learn from their grandparents. And the first few things here are history, wisdom, and humour. What's your thoughts on those first few things?
Well, history starts with the family, I think. And a grandparent is the ideal person to talk about the family history. With children, especially if they've got photos that they can show and talk about. I actually wrote a little family history for my grandchildren, going back to their great grandparents.
Wow.
And where they came from, and just in a simple way, so that they got an idea of the family tree. And I think that's very important. It's all tied up with, because we all need to find our identity, and it's all tied up with children finding their own identity and where they fit in the family and where their family's been before them. So I think history is very important, and also children love to hear about what things were like when the grandparent was little.
In the olden days.
In the olden days, that's right. Yes. Because just to tell children that when you were growing up, there was no microwave, there was no mobile phone, there was no television when I was a young child. There were no plastic bags.
No iPads. What? No iPads?
So, just talking about the history that, you know, we've lived through is opening children's eyes to how things change.
My daughter the other day said, "What, you had Arnott's biscuits when you were kids?" I'm like, yes. Arnott's biscuits have been around a long time. So it's funny what comes out of kids' mouths, and how they, well, you know, some even imagine that you lived in black and white times or something like that, that there was actually no colour when you lived, because
they see black and white photos.
Yes, yeah, right. That's right. And so obviously, you know, you've taught your grandkids pearls of wisdom as well. Like, you know,
I don't know about
pearls. No pearls. What kinds of other things besides history? You know, what other things should you be sharing with your grandkids?
Well, I think just everyday skills. You know, learn how to make a sandwich, make a cake, grow a cabbage, knit, sew, things like that. These days, you know, a lot of parents don't have time to teach their kids these things, and actually quite a lot of parents don't know how to do it themselves. So all those things you can teach. Another thing is time to play games. You know, teach them how to play checkers or drafts or simple card games. Kids love all those things. Doesn't have to be a video game or some whiz-bang thing you do on the phone. It can just be a very simple game. You know, my grandchildren love playing chess or cards or a board game.
At VPC, we talk a lot about technology time. Is it always technology free when they're there?
well, I wouldn't say always. When they were little, they didn't have television during the day, unless it got to the stage where they'd had dinner, had a bath and dinner, and waiting to be picked up to go home. Then I would let them watch an age-appropriate DVD, something you know that was suitable, just for quiet time.
Yeah.
Now they're older. They do like to have some tech time, but there are a lot of other things they can do too. And, you know, they seem to have enough tech time at home, so they can do other things when they're here with me.
Yeah. And I can imagine that they don't complain about it when they're at
No, they don't, because that's just the way it is.
Yeah.
You know, and that we certainly don't have the television on.
Yeah.
Unless they're staying for a sleepover, and one night we'll have a movie night with popcorn and whatever, which is fun.
Yeah.
But certainly not glued to the television. There are a lot of other things to do. And I think that's where you need to be a bit prepared and have a cupboard that's got pencils, paper, you know, safe scissors, tape, glue.
Yeah.
All those things so that they're there to do things with. I've always had like a craft cupboard that's had plenty of things in it.
And the op shop can be your best friend to get all the games, the board games. And
absolutely. Jigsaw puzzles, all that sort of thing. You don't have to spend a lot of money to have fun with your grandchildren. I mean, there are outings you can go on and you don't even need to open your purse.
Yeah.
And the grandchildren shouldn't be expecting something every time you go out.
Yeah.
I mean, it's all very well for grandparents to be seen as the fount of all treats, but it's not good for them, and it's expensive these days. You know, just take the kids to McDonald's for lunch, and you start how much it costs.
Yes. What are some of the great adventures you've done around Melbourne town?
We've had some lovely adventures. We went to the zoo a lot when the kids were little. I was a volunteer at the zoo, so I sort of had a bit of background knowledge about the animals. I knew the animals' names and that sort of thing. And little kids get in for free. So, and I would get in for free too. So we could go and it'd cost $2 to park the car.
Oh, wow.
And we could have a fabulous time.
Yeah.
Take a little picnic. Great believer in the little picnic. Doesn't have to be anything flash, but, you know, pack it up nicely and it's fun. Botanic Gardens are fantastic. Yeah. Fitzroy Gardens. When they got older, we went and explored Captain Cook's cottage. We explored the conservatory. There's a fantastic dragon slide in the gardens in East Melbourne. Down to the beach. Go for a beach ramble. Love that. Ramble on the rocks. Always have a plastic spade or something with you so that you can have a bit of a poke about. Because one of the rules is you're not allowed to put your fingers into rock pools. You can poke about with the spade. What else have we done? All sorts of parks we've been to. Adventure playgrounds the kids love. Yeah. Can't think.
I think you mentioned mini golf to me in another time.
As they were getting older, they love to go to mini golf. But I mean, you pay for it. The other things I've been talking about, you don't pay for. But come holidays now, we have a treat. So it might be mini golf, it might be a game of 10-pin bowling. Yeah. I don't tend to take my grandchildren to the movies because it's not really a treat these days. They see movies at home and they often go to movies with their parents. So we do other things. Yeah.
Great. Just remembering my next question. There was another article which the VPC is going to post about, and it was all about getting, if your school is suffering with volunteer levels, to asking for the help from grandparents. What do you think about that? Well,
I think if grandparents are interested in doing that, it's a great idea.
Mm.
To do that, they would have to have a working with children check, and to go and hear kids read, or the teachers have to be happy with that idea. And if the schools do go down that track, speaking as a teacher, they need to have like a little training session for the group of grandparents, so they know what base they're coming from and how to handle, how to handle various things that may arise.
Yeah.
Especially if they're reading with young children, the questions you ask, and how to approach it, really.
Yeah. So we've covered off, learning about history, a new skill set. We've covered that off, like cooking and the knitting and the different things like that. The wisdom and the life lessons from the grandparents, the family history, the humour. What about listening to them? Do you feel that just being an ear is a big help?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
Yes. And that children tend to talk more when they're not in a face-to-face situation.
Mm-hmm.
So a great many, and a lot of parents find this too, a great many conversations, quite deep conversations, happen when you're in the car.
Yeah.
Because the children are in the back seat.
Yeah.
And you talk about things, and they're confined to their seat, so they can't be jiggling off to do something else.
Yeah.
So they follow through.
Yeah.
Yes, talking and listening, very important.
Yeah, absolutely. We've talked about games as well, the traditional board games, card games. Do you have any good sort of made up type games that you've done with your grandkids?
Yes, I used to do a lot of make-up games with witches and princesses and giants and dragons, and we've had an aeroplane made out of chairs on the back lawn, and all the stuffed toys are going for a ride, and we've got the pilot, and oh my goodness, there's bad weather coming up, it's a bumpy ride, so we're all bumping around. Lots of fun like that, lots of imagination.
Yeah. Is it often the kids that are initiating that?
They might start something and I pick up on it. And I think we develop it together, and once they get the idea that their idea will be picked up and worked with, they give more.
Yeah.
So I've even been in a situation where a younger sibling needs to be included, so we have to find a doorkeeper or someone who's guarding the dragon, or someone who's the pilot in a plane, or anything, so that all the children present are involved.
Yeah. What kind of levels of emotional support do you think grandparents should be giving?
I think whatever's needed. There's nothing as good as a hug to make a grandchild feel better if they've fallen over or bumped their knee or something like that.
Do you find that grandkids often come into you when maybe they've had problems with friends or something like that they don't want to talk to mum and dad, or just anything they don't want to talk to mum and dad about?
Yes, sometimes they do. And I think what's important is the way you ask the kids questions. For instance, you don't say, "How was your day?" because the answer will be good.
Yeah.
It's more like, what was the best thing you did with your friend today? Things like that. So that they're not closed questions, they're open questions.
Yeah.
And then you develop them further.
Yeah. And I guess, you're taking an interest in who their friends are and everything like that, getting to
ask questions of their friends. What did James get for Christmas? Did Susie have a happy birthday? How's Hannah's mum? Is she feeling better? That sort of thing. So it looks as though, or it's not looking as though, but the kids know that you're interested.
Yeah. Fabulous. Don't sweat the small stuff.
Well, when kids are little, anything that goes wrong is a disaster. So they've got to learn that, oh dear, knock the milk over. Dear me, never mind. Let's mop it up and get another one.
Yeah.
You know, no need to cry about it.
Yeah.
You know, we can't find something. Oh, wonder where it is. Never mind. Let's use this instead. So, you know, offering alternatives like that and reassuring them that, you know, everything is not a disaster.
Yeah.
But being there at the same time if something really is wrong. If it's a really bad bump or fall, you know, pick them up and say, oh, give it a rub. Let's have a look. Maybe it needs some ice. You know, will we get some ice? That sort of thing. Whereas if it's just a very superficial thing and the tears start, we say, oh, dust yourself off, you're fine. You know, that's nothing to worry about. Yeah.
Did you have a special place in your house that was sort of like kid friendly or something like that? There was like, I know that it's not going to be the same as the parents' house where everything breakable is just not in the house anymore, but, and you know, you're not going to change your house for that, but did you have an area?
I had rules, yes. I had rules that there were things that were not to be touched. The children were not, this is when they're very little, not allowed to play in the lounge room. They were not allowed to play in my bedroom. They had a living area that was child friendly, and I had a large unit that had the television on it, and that was all. The other things that were on it, it was called my fiddle shelf, and it was things the kids could touch, play with, pick up, investigate, and I changed that regularly. So there might be a big shell or a magnifying glass or some little treasure that I picked up on my travels that I was quite happy for the children to pick up and play with. Another time I've had a compass so that they could see how it always points north.
Yeah. I love that idea of having a little fiddle shelf and just even just changing it up and just keeping
well,
it
also makes it easy because when kids change venue, so when they first come in for the day, it's a place of reference for them. They can go to that shelf and they can start to touch and fiddle and feel and look at something, and that makes the transition from home to my place. Makes it easy. That's fabulous ideas. The last point in this article was about snail mail, doing pen pals, or you know, writing letters to each other. Yes, great idea. I've always sent postcards to my grandchildren when I've been travelling, and I know they look forward to receiving those because they keep them. As they've got older, I've encouraged them to write letters and cards to me. And if they ever write to me, I always write back. And it's a great skill, learning to write a letter.
We've got a few more minutes. How's it been, the transition from your grandkids being in preschool to being in school time, and how did you go with the grandkids this year during the schooling at home time?
Year out of the ordinary.
Yes.
Well, I've been very lucky in that I've been able to help with their schooling at home, which I've loved, and they've loved too. From the youngest right through to the oldest. And that's been a fabulous experience, which I've really, really enjoyed. And, you know, they're growing up now. They're independent readers. But whenever they come to stay, here's something that's interesting. Whenever they come to stay, and I have had occasions when I've had all four of them at once staying for the night, which they love. There's always a quiet time after lunch. So everyone has to just go and find a quiet spot, have a read, including me, because kids are tiring.
Yes. So you all have a siesta. Nice.
Oh, well, no, it's not a siesta. It's a rest or a
Yeah.
quiet time.
Yeah.
And it's an hour.
Yeah.
And, you know, they're not running around doing things together. They're just looking at books or reading a book or something like that. Not technology, just a good old-fashioned book.
Yep. Yep.
Yeah.
Oh, that's fabulous. Just finally, you know, we've talked to you today because Grandparents' Day is on October the 25th. For those who don't know, we like to call it And Special Friends Day because not everyone is so fortunate to have such great grandparents in their lives or any grandparents, and that often there is a special friend as well.
Yes.
I know my boy couldn't have his grandma at the Kinder Day one time, so he brought one of her friends and she came along, and so that was really nice. And so we've arranged with our art teacher who did a live Zoom class on the school holidays, Jodie Hellowell from Spot of Art and Spot of Yellow. She's designed a couple of colouring in cards for us. So one of them says Happy Grandparents' Day and the other one says Happy Special Friends Day. And so we've actually created some links that people can log into and download these images, and we're encouraging all the kids out there to colour it in and write a lovely handwritten message to their grandparents or their special friends, and either sending it in the mail or dropping it in the mailbox or delivering it in person, depending on where you are and what your kilometre restrictions are. And what we're doing at the VPC is we're also asking for people to send us back a photo of the colouring in that the kids did, and we're just going to make a lovely compilation video along with the messages. Like the child might have written, "Dear Granny, I love it when you take us to the beach to go and search for seashells," or something like that. And so we're going to make a nice compilation of the artwork and the colouring in and all the lovely messages as well. And anyone that returns the colouring in, it's not a competition, but a colouring in event, then they actually get another art class with Jodie Hellowell from Spot of Art, and they can join in on her next art class that she's going to do, which is going to be all about holiday drawing. The last time we drew penguins, which was super cute. My daughter loved the penguin drawing. And we're going to do some holiday drawing next time. So we just thought it was very nice to tie it all in. It's the first time VPC has done some events for kids as well as now for grandparents too. So just trying to be inclusive of everyone. So thank you again so much for your time tonight, Pamela. It was fabulous having a chat about grandparenting, and you've given me some great ideas that I can talk to my mum about. And yeah, just thanks for being a part of the VPC community, and we hope you have many more grandparenting days to come. And also thank you to Pam. She has given us about 24 copies of her book that we've got, and we can give them away. So if anyone is interested, please leave a message below this video or contact Victorian Parents Council through their website and ask about how you can get a copy of Pam's book Wednesday at GAMS. So if you're interested, we have got some copies just for you. So thank you for that donation, Pamela. We love a good book donation.
Pleasure. It's been lovely to chat with you, Jerry. Thank you so much for the opportunity.
Not a problem. And we'll have a great evening, everyone. And it's over and out from the Victorian Parents Council. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you to our guest speaker. We hope you enjoyed today's topic. Want to know more about this podcast and other VPC podcasts and live events? Please visit the VPC website, vicparentscouncil.vic.edu.au, and leave a review. We'd also welcome you to contact us if you'd like to be our guest or if you have a topic around parenting and education. Thank you to Melbourne singer Emma Sidney for permission to use her soundtrack Cherish. Until next time, thank you for listening.